Hello, dear ones. Greetings from the St. Gregory of Nyssa Infant Memorial Garden here at All Saints in Bloomington, Indiana. Christ is risen. I wanted to talk to you today about a miracle of the prophet Elijah. And the miracle is connected to a video post that I did a couple weeks ago entitled The Bread, where I talked about Elijah being sent by God to this woman, this widow of Zarephath and her son, and providing how God provided miraculously for them throughout the famine. He provided oil and flour. Well, this same widow is featured in the story today, and her son, her only son, died. And she went to Elijah and she said to him, "What have you against me? You have brought the remembrance of my sins and the death of my son." And Elijah said to her, "Give me your child." And so he took the boy in his arms and brought him upstairs and laid him out on his bed in his room upstairs, because he stayed with her there when he was in town there. And he stretched himself out, we are told, 3 times over the boy. And he prayed to God and said, "Lord God, let the child's soul return to him." When he had done this 3 times, the boy was raised from the dead. And Elijah presented him to his mother and said, "You see, your son lives." Now, we don't know exactly why it is that things happen in the world, but certainly God knows. And in this particular story, it seems that this was allowed to happen that the glory of God might be made manifest, the power of God through the prophet Elijah. But it's always different. And of course, the vast majority of us don't get these happy endings to our difficult life circumstances. I'm standing, as I said, at the St. Gregory of Nyssa Infant Memorial Garden. My wife and I have lost 5 babies in the womb. And the most recent one was just a couple of months ago. Why do these things happen? I don't know. God knows. I got a call from a parishioner last night who told me that her father had died from coronavirus, and just 2 weeks ago her uncle had died from coronavirus. Why do these things happen? We don't know, but we know that God knows. And this is where faith comes in. This is where it's important to believe, as I was talking about yesterday with the definition of patience, right? To see with the eyes of the mind the invisible as visible. In other words, to believe that God's hand is always working in every circumstance. So whatever it is that's going on in our life at home, and I know, we're talking about opening back up and letting stores open up to certain capacity, not in Monroe County yet, we'll get there. But in the meantime, there's still grief. There's a collective grief, a community grief, right? Because we miss each other, because we've been pent up in our homes. So whatever it is that we're feeling or that we're suffering, whatever it is that we just don't understand about what's going on, and there certainly is plenty that we don't understand, we must believe that God knows, and that ultimately, whatever it is that is going on, it is allowed in order that the most possible good will come to the most possible people. I was reading in the Philokalia today, and it was St. Isaac the Solitary, I believe, talking about this very thing, about the importance of us seeing God working in our lives in the most unexpected circumstances. And these are certainly among the most unexpected circumstances we've ever endured. So brothers and sisters, commit with me today again to confess, to believe, to embrace that God is all-powerful, He is in control, that nothing is beyond the purview of His sight, and that even as He raised the widow of Zarephath's son from the dead, so also he can and does, often very quietly, work miracles in our own lives. The blessing of the Lord and his mercy come upon you. Christ is risen. Indeed, he is risen.